1-800-111. We established a website, www.oralgh.org, an email address, public@oralgh.org. Her Excellency the Vice President was also generous to offer us her conference room as our secretariat. So that served as our secretariat. So we didn't have to pay rent for our meetings. We also want to use this opportunity to thank the young Ghanaians who volunteered, because every Ghanaian is passionate about the success of oral. IT experts volunteered to set up this platform for us free of charge. So the toll-free lines, the websites, these are patriotic Ghanaians who did not demand any compensation from us. And we want to convey the appreciation of Ghanaians to these young, patriotic, selfless Ghanaians. By way of quick numbers, and these are very important numbers, we received 1,493 calls through the toll-free line, 1,493. We also received 924 emails. Fortunately, all of these calls are recorded automatically, and all the emails have also been preserved for verification and validation. So in total, the number of complaints received amounts to 2,417. So those who had any doubt about how relevant and how timely the President's intervention was at the time, this is your evidence. 2,417 complaints received. Where will all of these people have gone if President Mahama had not set up the oral preparatory team? So President Mahama has been vindicated. It was a masterstroke. It was the right decision for our country, and it has deepened transparency and accountable governance. Over the last 53 days, we have reviewed these petitions. 44 were received directly from civil society organizations and other public-spirited citizens. 59 of the 230 cases reviewed containing the documents we'll be submitting today were cases that had come up during the period the NDC was in opposition. But we decided to go back to those matters and carry out a detailed review. And all of those are contained. So today we will be presenting a summary of these reports, 230 of them which have been analyzed in greater detail. Your Excellency, we also want to bring to your attention that even before we move to phase 2 of oral, which is going to focus on the actual recoveries, the actual retrievals, we have identified 10 initial benefits of oral, and we want to run through them quickly. We take the view that oral has deepened transparency and accountability. It has really increased public awareness about the need to protect state assets. And it is also serving as a guide to the new government. And government officials are now more conscious of the need to make sure that, as President Mahama has consistently said, charity begins at home. Secondly, thanks to the establishment of oral, we have been able to save 50 bungalows that were on the verge of being demolished. 50 bungalows. We received distress calls from public servants who said people had showed up.
All right, so welcome back. Let's now do more on oral. You've seen the video there by Samuel Okujuta Blakwayanos, as well as the former Auditor General Daniel Yao Domlevo there. And he says he will be disappointed if government, the president doesn't do anything about it. But the oral committee presented a report containing 2,417 suspected corruption complaints to President John Dramani Mahama, with a potential accrual of some $20.49 billion from 36 cases successfully prosecuted. Now,
well, yeah, we do want to understand. I mean, how does the Attorney General jostle through this Herculean legal task? And how does this fight against corruption find expression in the withdrawal of ongoing cases of some officials who happen to have served in this government 8 years ago? And joining us for a conversation on this is former Deputy Attorney General Alfred Tuah-Yeboah, and he joins us via Zoom. Sir, good morning to you, and thank you for joining the conversation. That's not a good sound to hear. Brace, I believe we've lost Alfred Tuah-Yeboah, but we'll try to connect with them. We'll also speak to Mary Adam for Ghana Integrity, and when we're able to connect with them, right, okay. So there are some important things to note, you know, that we are talking about prosecuting people who are found culpable on incidents of corruption. And in another breath, the Attorney General is, the word that most people are using, clearing some people who were also involved in corruption. Let me see if we have Alfred Tuah-Yeboah now. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Oh, great. It's good to have you. I'm sure you've been following this keenly. I want to start by asking you, how does it feel to know that as we speak, over 2,000 cases of corruption have been reported to the president and he's handed over to the Attorney General to begin prosecuting? Initial thoughts on this?
All right, thank you very much. My initial thinking is very simple. There is a clear distinction between mere complaints and complaints with evidence. If it is about rumors that people have peddled and have reported, then I'll be disappointed. But if it's about genuine complaints backed with evidence, then we are all in for it. So these are my initial thoughts.
Are you saying that if it turns out that all these cases are actually backed by evidence, you would not be disappointed?
The fact is that as a nation, before I agree that we must fight graft, we must fight corruption. But as a nation also, we must not use propaganda or rumors to defame the hard-won integrity of others. And so if there's any case against any person and there's evidence against that person, then the rule of law must certainly be observed. But it's every day step. These are my initial comments.
Right, and I'm here with Brace. He'll come to you shortly, but I just want to find out briefly. Last time we had a conversation, you mentioned that all the cases that are of national interest that you haven't prosecuted yet or we haven't seen any conclusion on yet is because you lack evidence. Are you surprised that in this short time that the oral committee was set up, they've been able to mass up over 2,000, specifically 2,417 suspected cases of corruption and complaints? Does that come as a surprise to you, the numbers involved?
I'm happy you used the word suspected case of corruption. As I earlier on said, if it's about rumor peddling, if it's about the feelings of people, if it's about the thinking of people that there are various acts of wrongdoing, that one isn't something new to me. It started way back. People will say it, they will peddle the rumors, they will say all manner of things, but when it gets to the main deal, that's where you need the evidence. You see people checking out. I've not gone through the report that was submitted to the president yesterday. I don't know the evidence that they have in support of all those things that they've been spewing out. But when we get a report, and if there's hardcore evidence, then perhaps we can make a very meaningful and insightful discussion.
But I mean, if you look at the work they've done, and they even quantify the sort of money we will get when we are able to investigate properly all of these cases. I mean, if they've not seen the evidence that could probably lead us to conclude investigations and retrieve these monies, you think they will put out these monies that we're likely to retrieve some over $20 billion if we're able to investigate this properly?
My brother, talk is cheap. Quantifying and putting figures together is cheap. Making the public know that the nation receiving close to 21 billion is cheap. Anybody can do it. But the key question is, let's give ourselves the next 6-7 months and see if you can recover the amount, or whatever amount you need to recover within the next 6 months or 1 year. It's very easy to sit in your office, to be in your suit, and then push figures together and spew it around for people to hail you. But the actual work is how you can recover the money, and if indeed there's any money recoverable. Now we are told that the Attorney General has been handed over these alleged cases. That is where the work starts. All that they have done, from my point of view, is nothing but just rehashing old things that we have heard. If it's about rehashing it, then we are not going anywhere. If it's about getting evidence to support all those allegations and then prosecute them, then we will see where we can also go. But if you only say that we have $21 billion to recover, it's very cheap to say. Let's wait.
I mean, what kind of challenge do you foresee the Attorney General, encountering in this? Because over 2,000 cases that they have to investigate and then come out with the findings, and if possible, retrieving the over 20 billion. What kind of challenge? You've been there before. What would the Attorney General have to overcome to get to the evidence and to get the monies retrieved, if possible?
Yes, in the first place, the Attorney General does not investigate. The Attorney General does not have the power to investigate. It is the state institutions, like the police service, Yoko, etc., that have been given the power or the mandate to investigate. After their investigations, then they will submit their docket or their reports to the Attorney General. And then Attorney General, together with the officers at the office, will go through the docket to see whether those dockets are prosecutable dockets. If something is a prosecutable docket, what it means is that there is enough evidence on the docket that can warrant a successful prosecution of the case in court. So investigations, we should leave it to the state institutions. My worry, to some extent, is that we are talking about corruption. Corruption. I've said yesterday, that is cliche, that acts of corruption. In this state of ours, which institution has been given the mandate to investigate and prosecute corruption and corruption-related offenses? The answer is very simple. The Office of Special Prosecutor. And if you want to give, or if you have complaints against any individual, and you want the OSP to investigate and prosecute, you give such information to the Attorney General, going to present such piece of docket to the OSP, or you walk in straight to the OSP to lodge a complaint. If you are talking about corruption, then from the legal architecture that we have now, I was thinking that the committee that has come up with this will have said, oh, we are just whistleblowers, as they kept saying. This is what we have. We are submitting our complaints or the things that we've had to the OSP. Or he said the president could have yesterday said, this case, maybe out of the 200 or whatever, 50 of them are clear as of corruption. I'm referring these matters to the OSP for him to investigate and then possibly prosecute. But now, everything has been given to the Attorney General. So are you going back to the olden days where the AG was the one responsible for the prosecution of all manner of crimes, including corruption? For that matter, now the AG is now going to sift through and then indicate and then direct the OSP to engage in investigation and prosecution. I mean, I don't know. Is that a question I'm raising?
All right.
Well, let's usher in Martin Pebu because he's also online with us. Let's find out from him what he makes of the conversations so far. Martin, thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Good morning. Good morning, Sisi.
Right. I'm here with Brace. So I want you to weigh in on the selective justice debate. You know, in one breath, it looks like this government is committed to prosecuting those who are found culpable in corruption-related cases. And in another breath, it looks like we are filing nulli prosequi, clearing people, you know, who have active cases that also involve corruption or corruption-suspected cases. What's your argument here? How do you reconcile the arguments from both sides that you're clearing people and you're prosecuting people, but it's all corruption? What's your argument here?
Good. All right. So, of course, I'm not speaking for the Attorney General, but I mean, speak as a citizen. It's interesting. I'm happy you have Chia Yeboah on this and on the program. When Chia Yeboah and Godfrey Dami were in office, you see the kind of things they did. This Atuforce matter, what did we tell them? That from the ethics of our profession and the law of disclosure, that case they should have been stopped straight away. I don't like the word stop. It was a must. They were just, or what do you call it? It was an obligation, a legal one at that, to stop the trial between they and the trial judge. I mean, come on. We don't use the court's processes for political vendetta. You hear Godfrey Dami on the tape saying that it's Oforiatta and Akufo-Addo who are giving him pressure. You hear Godfrey Dami on the tape coaching Jakpa to go give false testimony. That's perjuring a witness. Number 3, you hear Godfrey Dami asking Jakpa to go procure a fake medical certificate. And you continued, and the trial judge wasn't firm. And instead of her to have excluded Godfrey Dami straight from the prosecution, she made it as an advice and all that. It made a mockery of our criminal justice system. So, Dr. Ayeni is within the law to have stopped that trial. That trial was just embarrassing as a nation. It just showed, it basically showed that we didn't know what we were about. So I'm even surprised that they all can be lumped together. So please, let's separate them. Let's take case by case.
Okay.
If you don't have time for each case, yes, I can understand. Maybe we can do it 2 parts, but let's not lump them together. I hope, has Chia Yeboah considered that they are forcing case?
So Martin, with all the officers who have been left off the hook now, which of them do you think, well, we didn't have the evidence to prosecute and so we should drop? And which of them do you think that we should have allowed the process to follow through?
Good. So now we've dealt with Atuforce and Jakpa. The one that I'm curious about is the Collins Dowda one, because the money was paid, a lot of money, about 200 million, right? Was paid. So that one, I want us to go into it. I've said it since day one, since the nulli prosequi and withdrawals were filed, that we want to hear from Dr. Ayeni the reasons for discontinuing that trial, because that money was paid and it's a lot of money. So I'm waiting for the reasons. My understanding is that Dr. Ayeni will come out in due course to give the various reasons. So when he does, then we'll scrutinize those reasons and see where to place the verdict. If the reasons are good, all well and good. If they are not, then there will be a clamor for the cases to go back to court. So
looks like there's an interruption in the flow of Martin Pebu's.
Well, let's bring in Alfred Chia Yeboah. He's Deputy Attorney General. Alfred, you are listening to former Deputy Attorney General. You are listening to Martin Pebu there. Your response to some of the things he brought up.
All right. Yeah. In terms of this debate as to whether the current AG was right or wrong in entering nulli prosequi and then withdrawal, we are informed that the AG may come out to offer reasons. Until I get to hear the reasons that he has to back the withdrawal that he has done, I do not want to engage in any commentary on it because I occupy that office. The Attorney General is vested with the power to either discontinue by way of withdrawal or enter entry. The entry of MP is not obliged to give reason. When it comes to discontinuation and then withdrawal, that's where the issue is. So I just want to hold on now. Let's wait for the AG to come out with the reason that is being told. Then I can make an informed comment on it.
But how couldn't you procure, say, judgment, or why couldn't you successfully prosecute, for example, the one he mentioned there, Collins Dowda, for example, because we know monies were paid, there were issues. Why couldn't you prosecute that one? As well as Dr. Opuni of Cocoa Board. I mean, there were charges against him, but how come these two cases, for example, when you and your boss could not prosecute them successfully during your term, 8 years?
These were cases that were in court and prosecution was being mounted. In fact, if you take the two cases you have mentioned, in one of them, the prosecution closed this case. The accused persons were ordered to open their defense. One of them closed his case. The second person also opened his defense, called about 5 or 6, if I'm not mistaken. So at an advanced stage. So they were prosecuted. In fact, we were in court prosecuted. In the other case, the prosecution, before we left, had also called witnesses, and they had testified, and they were undergoing cross-examination. Prosecution is a process. It's not an event. Accused persons under our Constitution have the right to challenge whatever orders that the court may make in the course of trial when they are being tried in court. And so, in this case that you mentioned, the accused persons, exercise their right to challenge most of the orders that the courts were making, and we couldn't stop it because that is rule of law. And so, it's not as if we were not prosecuting; we were prosecuting, but we have not come to the end. And so far as we have elected to go by this democratic rule, we must have in mind that people cannot be tried overnight. And say the Attorney General wants me to be in prison, so he goes to court and says, tomorrow you are in prison. No. The judiciary is also there to ensure that the rules are obeyed. So nobody can determine as to when the matter may end or may not end. It's within the ambit of the law for an accused person to challenge every single process. And that's the very reason why in our time we made a proposal by way of an amendment to the Criminal Procedure Act, a Criminal Procedure and Non-Offences Act, that when it comes to interlocutory appeals, we must do away with them so that the prosecution can close this case before an accused person can challenge interim orders made by the court in the course of the trial. That one couldn't go through because of obvious reasons. And I watched the Attorney General, current Attorney General, do his writing. He's of a different opinion. He thinks that such a thing should not be brought. An accused person can challenge all the orders as and when he likes. That's how it works. So let's see how it goes. Okay. We're doing our work. We're given a mandate. In our own small way, we did what was supposed to be done. We didn't finish. There's another person in the seat. He's also reviewing, and as I said, he may have whatever reasons that he may want to have, but we don't have the reasons, so I don't want to judge what he's doing for now. Let's wait for him to come out with the reasons, and then perhaps we can interrogate it.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Torre, but before you go, I'm curious, in your expert opinion, how does institutional capacity and judicial independence play over here? If you want to say that corruption allegations have been politically charged, you may find evidence to back that. But does Ghana's judicial system have the capacity to handle such a Herculean legal task, or would there be a need to add special courts or tribunals to this?
The judiciary, as we have it, has the capacity to deal with all manner of cases. We have judges who have been trained to handle various cases in the various courts. We have lawyers in the country who also go to court to defend their clients. And so far as the judges are working and the defense counsel are also working, and the AG's office lawyers are also working, we should come to that kind of realization that rule of law is also working. But most of the time, some of us think that so far as the matter has been brought before a judge, that matter must end within a month or a day or within 6 months or 3 months. But the legal system that we have now does not support such a view, because there's no time bar as to how a matter, as to when a matter should end. And so, unless there is an amendment to our Criminal Procedure Act, we will continue to have cases dragging for 10, 15, even 20 years, provided the accused person can afford the services of a lawyer to mount challenges when it comes to all the orders made by the trial court.
Please hold for us, Mr. Tuebo. Let's go to Martin Kpebu now. Martin, you were going to categorize the cases that the Attorney General has come under controversy for, but maybe you can complete on that trail of thoughts before we continue the conversation. Mr. Kpebu.
The point that, yes.
Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, so I made the point that I'm waiting for the Attorney General. I understand that he will be addressing us in terms of the reasons. And even before he comes, so we want to begin to get a bit excited that we are making progress as a nation, because though, in the Constitution and then the Act 30, the Criminal Procedure Act, it's not compulsory for him to lay out detailed reasons, but he's going to do it. And that will be a huge step forward for our democracy, so that we'll know exactly what went into each decision, as I mentioned earlier, so that in the event that we find that some of the reasons are not good, then automatically the decision will be that we expect him to go back to court. If all the decisions or all the reasons were good, then good. So, but ahead of the Attorney General coming to address us on that, as I've already mentioned, is the Collins Dada case I'm looking forward to. Because then the question is that, hey, so the money that was paid, did we get value for money? Yes, some of the buildings were put up. But as far as I can remember, they said the buildings, the number was supposed to be 5,000. Initially, it was a far bigger number of, buildings that were to be put up, the apartments, etc. Then it was reduced, and yet so much money was paid. So I'm waiting to see the difference.
All right.
With what was.
Mr. Kpebu, two-step question, but first, has your job ended now, the oral committee? Because yesterday we kept hearing phase one of the oral committee's work is complete. Has your work completed as we speak?
Yeah, practically, we will have to transition. We'll have to wrap up a bit. But let's say formally it's ended because we've handed in the report. But practically, as we speak, people are still bringing in complaints, etc. We cannot reject those. So we'll have to keep passing those on to the Attorney General. Right. So that's also a transitional period. But formally, phase one is done. So we are now going to phase two, which is where the Attorney General has taken custody of the reports, and he will distribute. Those that should go to Yoko will be given to Yoko. Those that should go to the OSP will go to the OSP. And those that should go to the police will go to the police.
Right. Martin, the second bit of my question, maybe you can add that in your reflection, would be, do we have the institutional capacity to deal with this? Looking at the number of cases you represented to the president, do we have the capacity to deal with this Herculean legal task, would you say?
Oh, absolutely, we do. We do. Let's also note that naturally, in the scheme of things, you can't have all the 2,417 and counting cases all going to court within 4 years. No, it's not possible. So let me explain how it works. When you hear the figure 2,417 and counting, it's not all of them that we have all the full facts and can immediately begin to get excited that this case will go to court soon. No, some of them are leads. So let's say if we take National Cathedral, that one, you see that there's a lot of material on it, even in the public domain. So National Cathedral is a case that it would ordinarily be easier to go to court. But some go in the nature of tips that, oh, look at, for example,
That's not a good sign, a good thing to hear.
It will be important to follow up from there to know what numbers out of the 2,000, you know. Lawyer, we have you complete it. You are a National Cathedral that could easily go to court. Yeah.
So I'm saying that one has more information, more material, so that one is easier to fully investigate and go on. But there are some of the cases you hear out of the 2,400 something, which are tips. So let's say Kojo Brace, for example, if the person says, oh, look at Joy FM, I think something is going on wrong. They have too many cars, or they are putting up too many buildings. That one is not a case that straight away you say, oh, you have a case to go to court. It means you now have to go and sit back, begin to analyze what the person is saying. And, you know, it will take time to be able to unravel such a case. But things like National Cathedral, like I mentioned earlier on, or the Sky Train, you see how our money was paid for a Sky Train that we never saw, okay? Or take the other examples apart from this PDS, you see, or look at all those big ticket items that took a lot of our money. Those ones, we've already debated them a bit, and also there are some basic material. So those ones would generally be easier to investigate and then proceed to court. So that's the distinction I'm making. Okay. So it's not possible that you can send all 2,417 and counting to court within 4 years. No. No.
So out of the number, as much as you can remember, what percentage of the over 2,000 cases do you think fall within, for lack of a better word, conjectures that demand further investigation, and what percentage fall within the ones that could possibly go to court in a very shortest time?
Maybe those 36 cases that they separated, shortlisted, or however they segregated that, maybe the ones that they'll prioritize. But we still have Mr. Alfred.
Okay, Martin is back. Martin, do make your point.
Yeah, so that's it. That's it. Sweetie has answered, so it's fine. It's fine. I have to move on to another station.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Right before you go, please just hold for me for 1 minute, Martin, if you can. What are your expectations? Yesterday, I listened to Aldomolovo saying that he would, if this is not prosecuted, they would be disappointed. What are your expectations now that you've handed over your report to the president? Or how high are your expectations, should I say? Oh, I don't think we have Martin Pebu.
Okay. But Chair Boa is still with us. So for example, in the land cases, those ones, you've been there before. Can't it be easy for money to be retrieved since they peg it to the market price and how much people have been paying for those?
Yeah, my brother, that is where the problem. When it comes to criminal prosecution, it's not about feelings. It's not about what you think or what ought to be. It's about the reality. So let me take myself as an example. I'm just using myself as an example. I don't own even an inch of land in Accra. Even the time that I was a deputy AG, I applied to the Lands Commission for a piece of land. And they wrote back to me that there was a piece of land, for example, at Laboni, which they were offering at an amount. And I go through the process to acquire that land. I mean, who can ever say that what I did amounts to a criminal conduct?
Even if you bought it for, say, 40,000 cedis when market price is around $200,000,
You see, this is what I'm saying. I'm using myself as an example. I never made an offer. The offer was made by the Lands Commission. For example, that was a land at Laboni, maybe 200,000 Ghana cedis. I will accept the offer and then buy. That's the consideration that I have paid. So it's purely within the line of civil litigation. If you think that that contract is unlawful or that contract is against public policy, do you prosecute me? You are offering a state. You are offering a piece of land for an amount. Someone applies and he purchases that land. And now you're making that kind of noise that, oh, the person has stolen it. Stealing will not come in. The person has not defrauded you. If anything at all, is purely contractual obligation that the party has entered into. Can you go ahead and say, I'm going to take back my land if you don't add amount X or Y because it was below the market value? We have a long way to go. As I said earlier on, propaganda, feelings, and then rumors are totally different from hardcore legal evidence. I'm not saying that if people have done anything wrong, they should not be called upon to account. If, for example, there are people who may have to be investigated, then it should be the state officers within the Lands Commission who gave out the offer to that public officer.
Okay.
Did that state officer go by the laid-down procedure? If the answer is no, then perhaps you can hold him to account. But the person who came to buy or acquire it, if there's no express evidence to the fact that he was in the way or he committed fraud or something, I mean, you cannot say you should go and pay the market price, open market price. In terms of you making that propaganda that a person bought a piece of land for 200,000, and then the market price was at the time of the purchase $200,000, and then you can make that one. People will just agree with you, but take that one to court and you see your real size.
Okay. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Okay.
And Mr. Tewa, please indulge me. I know that you are not in government as we speak, but is there a possibility that Oral, looking at the work that they've been able to do in this short time, bringing to bear over 2,000 suspected cases of corruption, and with talks about strengthening institutions that are supposed to be dealing with corruption, I'm talking about the Office of the Special Prosecutor, SHRAJ, and so on and so forth. Is it possible that Oral could be that catalyst that we've been looking for to strengthen these institutions in our bid or quest to fight corruption? Do you see that happening?
Not at all. I see Oral as a toothless institution without the power to investigate and engage in so many things. So it's just an amorphous body that was set up. So they cannot in any way, from my point of view, help in the fight against corruption. We have state institutions. If you have any resources, we should turn that resource to the appropriate state institution so they can do their job. Martin Tebu, as he just spoke to me, is a private legal practitioner. He doesn't have the power to investigate. He doesn't have the power to mount any prosecution. So if Martin Tebu were to invite me, I'll tell him, Martin, I won't come, even if I'm corrupt. But if I'm corrupt and then the police invites me, or Yoko, I mean, I dare not. I'll have to obey their invitation. And so if you have anything to do, we must rather strengthen state institutions, but not set up a body that to me no power, just receive rumors, and then they'll give those rumors to the state institution for them to do it. I mean, I don't think what they've done so far is something that I would say, if I were in government, I would advise them to do. I would rather advise that if you have these complaints, please channel them to the state institution for them to work.
While you call them toothless, they've been able to gather information, rumors or not. These are leads that, the state institutions who have prosecutorial powers may now investigate to see if there's anything there to prosecute. Does that not reveal a gap in the work that the SWAL administration did in terms of bringing to bear these suspected cases of corruption? At least They've done that, have they not? Toothless as they may be.
My sister, since independence to date, how have you reported cases of corruption or wrongdoing, and how have they been investigated? People have reported cases to state institutions to investigate. People do not report to a body for the body to report the case on their behalf. So now, if, for instance, I reported or I lodged a complaint with oral, and they've incorporated that one in their report, and they give that report to as they give it to the AG, and then the AG refers the matter to IOCO, and I decide, me being the whistleblower who gave the information to oral, decide not to appear before IOCO or to cooperate with them, what happens? But if I had walked myself to IOCO or had given the information to them directly, that would be a different ball game. Because if I give a report to IOCO or a state like the police service, and then they realize that what I did was just to deceive a public officer, there are consequences. But ORA, if I give you wrong information to ORA, they are not public officers. You guys have deceived them to engage in the wild goose chase. That's the very reason why we must be looking at the state institutions. If ORA is a whistleblowing agent, fair enough. They may say we are whistleblowers. We are only blowing the whistle to the state institutions. But this appears not to be the case.
Mr.
They rather receive information. Then at times they didn't come out to say Mr. A or Mr. B is involved. So they are outside the ambit of whistleblowers.
Would you have caught on, I mean, assuming you were still in office, would you have caught on to all these cases that have now been brought to light without a committee set up assuring the public of their safety in terms of being anonymous to tip the government on who is involved in corruption or corruption-suspected cases? Would you have been able to gather over 2,000 suspected cases of corruption if this committee was not set up?
As for gathering, I don't think I have issues with gathering. Because rumors can be gathered by anyone. And that one has no value. But if, for example, a committee had been set up, a joint investigative body, membership, IOCO, police service, OSP, and they were there to receive it, I mean, you see that the state is now working. But people who are outside the investigative bodies are now receiving some complaints. And those complaints, as I put them, they are mere rumors. What value can we place on such rumors?
But whether rumors or not, people have had trust in the oral committee to go to them with information, something that all the bodies you speak to have been around for ages, but have not been able to come out with the work that oral has done. Isn't it something worthwhile, the effort that the state has put into it?
We are now trying to assume that the other states have not been receiving such complaints. Maybe because they've not been coming out, maybe they've been receiving in the hundreds of thousands. But because this particular institution is more a political body, because it's a change in government, I mean, within a month, definitely, that kind of, let's come out with the figures for people to know. But you go to the police service and then ask them, the last 3 months, the complaints that they've had from the public on various activities bordering on criminality, on crime. They can give you the figures. So I'm not interested in the figures. In any event, you have over 2,000, to them over 2,000 complaints plus. Let's wait. And then see how many of them will definitely be prosecuted in court. Let's wait patiently. 2,400. Let's wait. Even if, from my point of view, 10% of them can be prosecuted in court. If 10% is on the high side. Let's wait. Let's wait peacefully. So as we have life, and then see what happens.
Okay.
Alfred Soyebwa, the former Deputy Attorney General. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Well, one person who's also very vital to this conversation has to do with the anti-corruption, bodies, or one of those people who are Now, Mary Ada is the executive director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative.
Yes.
She's been quite vocal on issues like this, and it's important we bring her in at this time.
Good morning, Madam Mary Ada. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning, and
Great.
thank you for having me.
Okay. So, simple question. What does this do for our fight against corruption? I'm referring to the work that the oral committee have done, presenting that report to the president and the president passing it on to the Attorney General. What does this do to our quest to fight corruption?
So one of the things that is very important in this fight is the issue of perceptions and impressions. So what impressions we create in the space is very important. So whatever happens, people would then begin to see that the optics are there. We created some impressions that we are going to fight corruption, and trust could go up. That's admittedly one of the good things that could come out of it. But then, again, the other issue is how this pans out. We have put out an avenue for collecting complaints. These complaints have been received. We hear 2,400 of them. And out of the 2,400, they've been received to a possible 24, 30-something.
36.
Thank you, the number. And so that alone tells you that in the quest to fight corruption, there's usually people who are willing and available to make complaints. But when it comes to the substance and the credibility of the information, it becomes a difficulty. And we have experienced the same in the past, that people make very good complaints, but these are not supported by the facts. But it is a good thing that this has started. At least it gives the ordinary Ghanaians in the street, they hope that this is going to happen after all. And because they started collecting, they have received, the presidency has put himself out there and spoken without any restraint at all. Really, that's the means business when he says he wants to fight corruption. I say it is a good sign because in the calculation of various surveys and indices, we realize that perceptions are very important. And as you may already know, today the Transparency International Movement is launching or has launched the...
Yes, and in fact, I know that Kojo wants to come to you on that tangent, but I just want to clarify something you said. In our quest to actually get rid of corruption in this country, are you saying that the optics bring some sort of cardinal value to the fight? Because you're saying that the optics are good, the optics. Is it important what the optics tell us?
So optics and impressions count a lot, because what we see happen is what we live by. And so the other aspect of the optics being either positive or negative is then the reflection of action. And those could be detrimental or beneficial to us in the fight against corruption. So when people see that the president says, oh, we've received this, I've handed over to the Attorney General. And then the next level, the Attorney General is also working assiduously and very committed to ensuring that investigations are concluded and action is taken, then it could also portend to our good.
Right.
However, if we see that these investigations take a very slow, then it could also affect perceptions negatively.
Okay.
So for now, what is happening, we have had our opinions on this and we stated them openly that the institutions of states who are assigned the mandate to fight corruption should be allowed to do so. And they should investigate without any politicization whatsoever, because we know that we have received, I mentioned it somewhere else, we receive complaints. Sometimes it's difficult to substantiate some of these complaints.
All right.
And in other times, it is easy.
Okay.
Because the evidence is there. And we know that in our court system, with experience from the past, and also even with evidence from the recent actions of the Attorney General, you know that the cases will not go one day. We have seen the Attorney General discontinue as many as 7 cases or so, because perhaps he will tell us why going forward. But these are very important in the fight against corruption.
Okay.
We should not take that for granted. But going forward, we need more action, because in the information we put together, in many of those instances, we are talking about issues beyond just what we want the public to see and what the public should perceive. We want to see experiences and action.
Okay. Now, with your corruption perception index that has been released today, we see Ghana drop a percentage point from 43% in 2023 to 42%. What's contributing to the drop?
So, Kojo, there are a lot of different thinking around this. If you look at the various surveys, there are a lot of different things that have contributed to the drop. And we mentioned this as well last year, that whenever a country has stagnated for such a long time on a particular score, the tendency of a drop is very high. And we have been proving right. We have also mentioned in the past that when we see some of these things and we mention them, we need to take action. Because let me just give you a few instances where we mentioned some things going forward. Remember, the surveys also are for a certain period, and this is 2024. We will look at issues around public sector accountability. If you look back and reflect some of the things government did, then you would not be surprised that we are getting this. When there was a need for information to be given, the attitude of public servants or public officials in this regard. We have also seen or experienced in the past some of those measures that were put in place to prevent corruption not being activated. And in most of the instances, they were actually being attacked either left, right, and center, either in court. You can take the OSC, for instance. He was sent to court. They wanted to remove him. There was an instance in the court. People made complaints, and other individuals took, and we know where all those things came from. Then we have issues around transparency, misappropriation of funds, bribery. When it got to elections, the way people were sharing gifts from the parties, left, right, and center, particularly the ruling government, we mentioned it, abuse of power, abuse of discretion in some of the surveys, issues around red tape, excessive whistleblower protection. When people blew the whistle, how were they treated? We had issues around the risk of bribery in the arena of import and export trade. And you remember the OSP correctly dealing with some of these. And you can go back to mention the issues around how efficient government was, the excessive patronage, nepotism, people being engaged based on who they know and not on their expertise. These are some of the things that contribute mostly in the surveys that are done, or the indices, including the varieties of democracy. We have the World Economic Forum Index, the World Bank, CPIA, and the rest. So it's not surprising at all. If we mention them, you saw them happen. So they are a reflection of what happened in the public sector of Ghana during the period under review.
Do you foresee the oral having a positive impact on our CPI probably for 2025?
Going forward, it depends on how, like I said, oral is not an activity, it's a process. So going forward, depending on how that process is executed, it could portend for good or bad. And so it remains with the agencies and institutions that work on this to ensure that they are very efficient, transparent, accountable to the people, and remain very independent in their dealings. Then this could result in very good. Remember, it's the optics, and it is the public sector. So it's a good one for visibility now, but how it is taken forward could also create trust that government could fight corruption very well.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
I mean, I was going to ask about Parliament, but yeah, we have to leave it. I'm sure some other time we can. But if you can spend 1 minute to address this. In your recommendation, you're asking Parliament to enhance its financial oversight responsibilities by empowering the Public Account Committee. From what you've seen so far, I mean, we know of what Parliament did in the 8th Parliament, in the 9th Parliament. From what is happening, do you foresee that Parliament can really do what you are recommending that it does?
At this point, we believe so.
Okay.
We believe that with the supermajority, it is incumbent on government itself who wants to fight corruption to ensure that the very huge majority is doing its work creditably. And also,
oh, the line dropped.
Yeah, but that is Mary Ada, the Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, trying to put in perspective how oral and Parliament can help us raise the CPI. We also spoke to the former Deputy Attorney General, Alfred Tuayeboa, and we also spoke to Martin Kwebu, private legal practitioner and a member of the oral committee. When we do connect with Mary Ada, maybe we can bring you that. Okay. Kojo, I think Mary's back.
Point about that they believe that Parliament can really do this work.
oh, yes. Parliament should be able to do, and if you check from experiences elsewhere, where parliaments have been effective in oversighting the executive, they have very good CPI scores. And so for me, I believe that the Finance Committee and also the PAC, which is supposed to be independent, composed of different people, should come with the expertise and also the credibility that we want them to show. They have I have no doubt whatsoever that if they have documents in time and they scrutinize them, they will be making the needed inputs and they will be going beyond just what they do for now, creating platforms for people to come and lament and talk about what they have done without any result whatsoever, to an effective body which is superintending over the budget and also the expenditures of this land. And I believe without a doubt whatsoever that even though at this point in our parliament's life, we have so many newcomers who may not have the expertise and competencies of parliamentary work, but in this oversight rule, they would have all the expertise to do the work and do it very well. So it also beholds on the Speaker and leadership to ensure that whoever is serving on the PAC and also the Finance Committees are having the needed capacity. That would, if that has to do with capacity building to equip them, they should give them to ensure that they are creating value for money for the people of Ghana.
Mariada, we're grateful to you for joining us here.
Thank you very much.
Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, and they released the CPI for this year. They released it today, where Ghana has dropped from 43 points to 42, and we're not doing so well. Let's see how it goes from here and for next year. Well, we need to take a break here on the AM show. We'll bring you some conversation on the petroleum downstream sector. There's a lot of calls for a reform. What kind of reforms do you want to see in the downstream? Stay with us for a conversation on that. We'll be back.